The fall of Berlin, the end of WWII, the final days of World War II in Europe were marked by devastation, incredible acts of courage, and the ultimate surrender of Nazi Germany. This period encapsulated the horrors and heroism of a world at war, leading to a dramatic conclusion that shaped the future of Europe and the world. Berlin's fall was a pivotal moment in World War II, signifying the collapse of the Nazi regime. As the capital of Germany and the heart of Hitler's power, its capture by Allied forces symbolized the end of an era of unprecedented brutality and the beginning of a new chapter in history. In early 1945, World War II had reached a critical juncture. The Allies were closing in on Germany from all sides, with the Soviets advancing from the east and the Western Allies pushing from the west. The war had taken an immense toll, and both sides were preparing for a final decisive confrontation. Berlin was a crucial target for the Allies due to its political and symbolic significance. Capturing the city would not only cripple the Nazi command structure, but also deliver a psychological blow to German forces and civilians. Its fall would hasten the end of the war and solidify the Allies' victory in Europe. The Soviet advance towards Berlin was relentless. After enduring years of brutal conflict and immense losses, the Red Army was determined to capture the German capital. As they pushed westward, their momentum grew, driven by a desire for retribution and the strategic necessity of ending the war swiftly. The Soviet offensive, known as Operation Berlin, commenced on April 16, 1945. This massive assault aimed to capture the German capital and decisively end the war in Europe. The Red Army launched a series of coordinated attacks, utilizing overwhelming artillery and airstrikes to break through German defenses. The battle at Seelow Heights marked one of the fiercest confrontations. Situated east of Berlin, these heights were heavily fortified by the Germans. Soviet troops faced intense resistance as they advanced, encountering mines, bunkers, and entrenched soldiers in a desperate attempt to halt their progress. German defense strategies during this period were marked by desperation and fanaticism. Despite being vastly outnumbered and outgunned, German forces utilized every available resource to defend Berlin. Makeshift barricades, anti-tank weapons, and last-ditch counterattacks were employed in a bid to delay the inevitable Soviet advance. The civilian population of Berlin endured unimaginable suffering as the battle raged on. Families huddled in basements, makeshift shelters, and overcrowded bunkers. Food and water became scarce, and many faced the horrors of bombardment and street fighting. The human cost of the conflict was immense and heartbreaking. Urban warfare in Berlin was brutal and relentless. Soviet and German soldiers engaged in close-quarters combat, fighting house to house and street by street. Buildings were reduced to rubble, and the city's infrastructure crumbled under the relentless bombardment. The intense urban fighting turned Berlin into a war-torn battlefield. The Reichstag stood as both a strategic stronghold and a powerful symbol of Nazi authority. Its capture was more than a military objective. It was a psychological blow to the heart of Hitler's regime. Soviet forces understood that raising their flag over this building would signify ultimate victory. Soviet troops advanced through Berlin's war-torn streets, facing fierce resistance. As they neared the Reichstag, they knew its capture would mark a decisive moment. The building's imposing structure loomed large, representing the final bastion of Nazi power amidst the rubble of a shattered city. The battle for the Reichstag was intense and brutal. Soviet soldiers fought room by room, floor by floor, against entrenched German defenders. The air was thick with smoke and the sound of gunfire. Each step forward came at a high cost, but retreat was not an option. The raising of the Soviet flag over the Reichstag was a moment of immense symbolism. It was captured on camera, immortalizing the scene. This act declared to the world that the Nazi regime had fallen and that the Red Army had triumphed over the fascist forces. Archival footage of the flag raising remains iconic, a testament to the Soviet victory. The images evoke the sheer scale of the battle and the profound sense of accomplishment felt by the soldiers. This visual documentation underscores the historical significance of that pivotal moment. In the dimly lit confines of his Berlin bunker, Hitler's final days were marked by despair and delusion. The once feared dictator now faced imminent defeat, his grand plans crumbling around him. Surrounded by loyalists, he issued feudal orders, refusing to accept the inevitable collapse of his regime. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler chose to end his life, taking a cyanide capsule and simultaneously shooting himself. Beside him, his wife Eva Braun also committed suicide. Their deaths signaled the ultimate downfall of the Nazi leadership, leaving Germany in a state of chaos and disarray. With Hitler gone, the remaining Nazi leaders scrambled to maintain control, but their efforts were in vain. The once unyielding command structure disintegrated rapidly. High-ranking officials either fled, were captured, or took their own lives, acknowledging the irreparable defeat that loomed over them. Amidst the crumbling leadership, initial discussions for German surrender began. Representatives from the German High Command and the Allied forces convened to negotiate terms. The pressing need for an end to the relentless fighting drove both sides to the table, paving the way for the war's conclusion in Europe. On May 8, 1945, the unconditional surrender of Germany was formally signed at Karlshorst. The document, signed by representatives of the German High Command and the Allied forces, marked the official end of World War II in Europe. This historic moment symbolized the triumph of the Allies and the definitive fall of Nazi Germany. The fall of Berlin left an indelible mark on the soldiers who fought there. German troops faced the stark reality of defeat, grappling with the collapse of everything they had been fighting for. Meanwhile, Soviet soldiers celebrated their hard-earned victory, marking the end of a long and brutal journey. Berlin's civilians experienced a whirlwind of emotions as the city fell. Some were relieved that the fighting was over, while others were fearful of the occupying forces. Amid the ruins, families sought to rebuild their lives, mourning lost loved ones and grappling with the uncertainty of the future. The physical destruction of Berlin was staggering. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, iconic landmarks lay in ruins, and infrastructure was devastated. The once vibrant city was now a landscape of desolation, a stark reminder of the war's ferocity and the heavy price paid by its inhabitants. The human toll of the Battle of Berlin was immense. Thousands of lives were lost, and countless others were forever altered. Soldiers and civilians alike bore the scars of the conflict, both visible and invisible. The suffering endured during those final days highlighted the profound cost of war. Following the Soviet victory, Berlin entered a new phase: liberation and occupation. Soviet forces took control, imposing their authority over the shattered city. This initial period of occupation set the stage for a complex interplay of power, as Berlin became a focal point in the emerging post-war world. As the war drew to a close, American, British, and French forces entered Berlin, marking a new chapter for the shattered city. Their presence symbolized the Allied victory and the beginning of a collaborative effort to stabilize the region and address the humanitarian crisis that had unfolded. Berlin, once a bustling metropolis, lay in ruins. The fall of the city marked the end of the war in Europe, but also highlighted the immense devastation wrought by years of conflict. Buildings were reduced to rubble, and the infrastructure was nearly obliterated, leaving a haunting landscape of destruction. Amid the devastation, efforts to rebuild began almost immediately. Allied forces, along with Berlin's resilient citizens, started clearing debris and restoring essential services. This period marked the first steps toward healing and reconstruction, setting the stage for Berlin's eventual recovery from the war's devastation. The end of World War II in Europe sowed the seeds for the Cold War. Tensions between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies began to surface as ideological differences became more pronounced. Berlin, divided into occupation zones, emerged as a focal point for the impending geopolitical struggle. Amid the ruins, the stories of survivors began to emerge, each one a testament to human resilience. These personal accounts provided a poignant reminder of the war's human toll and offered valuable insights into the experiences of those who lived through the fall of Berlin and its aftermath. Survivors' stories provide a poignant glimpse into the human side of Berlin's fall. Civilians recall the terror and chaos as bombs rained down, while soldiers share harrowing tales of brutal combat. These first-hand accounts humanize the historical event, showing the resilience and suffering of those who lived through it. Berlin's fall holds immense historical significance, marking the definitive collapse of Nazi Germany. It symbolized the end of years of tyranny and warfare in Europe. This pivotal moment reshaped the continent, setting the stage for post-war recovery and the re-establishment of peace and democracy in shattered nations. The global impact of World War II's end in Europe reverberated far beyond Berlin. It ushered in a new era of international relations and led to the formation of the United Nations. The war's end also ignited movements for independence and self-determination in colonized nations, significantly altering the global political landscape. Archival interviews with WWII veterans and historians enrich our understanding of Berlin's fall. Veterans share their lived experiences and the emotional weight of the battle, while historians provide context and analysis. These interviews offer invaluable insights, bridging the gap between personal memory and historical record. Berlin stands as a potent symbol of Nazi Germany's defeat. The city's fall represented not just a military victory, but the ideological collapse of the Third Reich. The iconic image of the Soviet flag over the Reichstag remains a powerful reminder of the triumph over fascism and the restoration of hope. The fall of Berlin teaches us the devastating cost of war and the importance of diplomacy to prevent such conflicts. It underscores the resilience of humanity amidst destruction and the need for global cooperation to maintain peace. These lessons remain crucial as we navigate modern geopolitical challenges. Commemoration of Berlin's fall is essential to honor those who sacrificed their lives and to remind future generations of the horrors of war. Memorials, museums, and educational programs ensure that the bravery and suffering of those involved are never forgotten, fostering a commitment to peace and unity. Summarizing, the fall of Berlin marked the end of Nazi tyranny and a pivotal moment in world history. It showcased the immense human spirit in the face of adversity and set the stage for post-war reconstruction. This event remains a powerful symbol of both defeat and hope. Ending with visuals of the Soviet flag over the Reichstag, we are reminded of the triumph and the tragedy of Berlin's fall. These images encapsulate the momentous victory and the beginning of a new, albeit complex, chapter in European history, resonating deeply with viewers. Reflecting on this significant event encourages viewers to engage with history actively. By liking, subscribing, and sharing their thoughts, they contribute to a broader understanding and appreciation of the past, ensuring that the lessons learned from Berlin's fall continue to influence future generations.